After months of public silence, guess who's back? Bungie's back again, trying to get you to play Marathon's new alpha that this time is completely under NDA. And this NDA'd closed technical test will be taking part on October 22nd through the 27th, so very near future. They even paired this all with a blog with some major details revealed that I think we're just addressing all the main issues people were having with Marathon. Saying this alpha will have 3 maps instead of 2, 5 runners instead of 4, prox chat in the game, retuned combat pacing, solo queue, deeper environmental storytelling, and more. And probably most importantly when it comes to this entire technical test is right here, that they're going to be focused on the early player experience. And you can sign up right here with the closed technical test right now on their website. Just go to bungie.net, sign up, and hopefully you'll get a chance. And signups for this closed alpha will remain open until October 26th, the day before the technical test actually closes down. Now, these are some massive changes coming to the game, directly responding to all the major issues people were having with Marathon, myself included. Personally, I enjoyed the core gameplay experience of what Marathon had to offer. I've been yearning for a nice extraction shooter replacement ever since I got hooked onto playing DMZ and Modern Warfare 2. Then of course support for that shut down, and I looked towards Marathon to be that really nice like casual experience when it comes to playing an extraction shooter. But the problem was that I felt that Marathon didn't really go full casual extraction, because it's still pretty hardcore for it being like that's what their version of what Fortnite would have been for extraction shooters, trying to capitalize on that casual console audience, but it still felt like it was rather hardcore and trying to appeal to those Tarkov players as well. But the loot, again, wasn't really that rewarding. Some of the character balancing did not feel very good either. And the solo queue experience was something I'd rather just not bother with at all. And looting in this game, or at least trying to earn some good loot, just felt really underwhelming, very grindy, and it felt like as soon as I got something decent, I died right away. I put over 40 hours into the alpha of Marathon, and I got 1 gold item, and I got to enjoy that for probably about 5 minutes until I died later that round. So when I read through all these major changes, initially I get really excited, but now I'm kind of thinking, but what can they really have changed since the last technical test? Because this technical test has taken place literally 6 months on the dot after the previous one, which in game development, 6 months does give you a decent amount of time to make some changes, but nothing that crazy. Such as the 3 maps included. This is definitely not going to be that Bungie ship level that they keep referencing as like that's the end game stuff. Again, like I said earlier, they're focusing on the early player experience here. So this is going to be another map that I believe Joe Ziegler mentioned in a previous update. This is going to be a similar, smaller type of map, but there'd be like 15 players on the map, similar to we had previously in the beta, but now with another map. 5 runner shells, which is a nice addition, and this is likely going to be that thief, because previously we had Blackbird, Glitch, Locust, and Void as the 4, and then we've only ever heard of Thief, and there is going to be another runner that's going to be at launch. We just haven't seen it yet. The only other one we've heard of is Thief, which Joe Ziegler briefly touched on in like I would call his hostage update video, which seems so just out of the blue, random, unneeded, and really just kind of hastily put together. Seriously though, when this video went live, I was like, what the heck did I just watch? It's just kind of Joe Ziegler kind of going without a script, kind of like, oh, it's a game with characters, you know, it's gonna be fun, right? But I'm really glad to see that Bungie was really able to take the steps forward when it comes to adding in prox chat. I think in a game like this is going to be crucial. I remember so many times while playing at least DMZ, but also in other games as well with prox chat, like yeah, there is that possibility for toxicity to happen, but as long as you give players an easy ability to just mute people who are just annoying or saying ridiculous stuff online, that's all you really need to do. Plus, especially in an extraction shooter, there's so many ways where you can actually probably work together with potentially enemy players to be able to accomplish a goal. There's so many times where I was playing, I was like, hey guys, we're just friendly, we're just trying to complete some missions. You can actually create some friendships and you guys actually can work together to complete missions together. And all of that through prox chat, because without prox chat, every player encounter you're going to be looking at as an enemy that you need to kill. Where if you have proc shut on, it allows more for creative urgency by the player. So I'm all for proc chat being added into this game, no matter what the toxicity could possibly bring for this game. Now, retuned combat pacing is really important to mention if it's just like a TTK thing, which I thought was fine in the game. But I think they're hopefully talking about more about retuning combat pacing as in how soon do you run into people fighting in the game. Because since these maps are smaller and there are less players, it's easier to predict where players are going to be spawning at. And so then if you have very dedicated spawn locations at each time you join into a full match, you know that if after a while, if you go to the left, if you go to the right side of where you spawn, you're going to run into players because you're going to spawn there enough times where you remember those locations as well, because these maps are so small. So I wonder if they're going to mix that up a little bit, which should be, I think, really important for the first half of any match out there, because found a lot of times towards the end of the alpha that most of the time was where you would spawn, you would bum rush the other team because they wouldn't be expecting it, and that really was the best way to earn loot within Marathon. It wasn't completing missions, it was PvP and trying to slay each other out, and the missions were there just because you just wanted to have something to do while you were playing. So hopefully this combat pacing can really be tuned properly. And then kind of touching on that a little bit, like I mentioned earlier about playing solo, was not a fun experience, but it looks like they're trying to bring in a solo queue into the game, which is going to be very interesting to see how that plays out, because as I've heard that from like Joe Ziegler and other content creators mentioned, that when they did do solo play for Marathon, it was not a fun experience at all. From all accounts from the content creators and devs who have had a chance to play solo queue in Marathon, that most people ended up just running Void and just kind of sneaking around the map. Not that fun, not that engaging, but people really asked for it. I think the main thing is not really having a specific playlist that's only for solo queue players, but I think an important thing is to tune your matchmaking so it's a bunch of solo queues into a singular match, but still in teams of 3, because the entire balance of like the loot pools and the PvE engagements are based around teams of 3. And I think Marathon will likely be played better as a team of 3 rather than a bunch of solos running in, but you do need to provide a good experience for solo queuing players. That's where I think people are asking for the solo queue, but I don't know if that's really what they're gonna want. From at least from my experience, that Marathon is definitely played better with friends and synergizing your abilities with your team. But if everyone's gonna be running solo queue and just one player per team basically, you're gonna see meta builds, you're gonna see very similar type of play styles, probably a lot of Void or either Blackbird when it comes to understanding where player locations are. But of course, we just kind of have to wait and see how that actually plays out. We were told it's not going to be fun, but we'll just have to wait and see. But I feel like this is kind of one of those situations where you use that terminology of the customer is always right. I will say a lot of people misunderstand that statement of the customer is always right, but sometimes you do need to give into what people are asking for. Now I'm saying that not necessarily giving them a solo queue playlist is what they need. They need a proper solo queue experience, and that's what's not really available, at least in the alpha test for Marathon. Again, I don't really think they should even stream that in the first place. This game was not ready 6 months ago, and I don't know how much more ready the game is going to be now after these recent updates. I've just another 6 months of time to be able to make this. One aspect I think that people really expected out of Bungie for this type of game was some storytelling, because all the other extraction shooters out there that are popular just kind of get by and just so focus on just the multiplayer side of things, that when you go into a AAA studio with a long history of excellence like Bungie with Halo and Destiny, you kind of just expected a bit more, especially with the storytelling element. And there was essentially nothing when it came to this alpha. Bungie was really leaning on like these contracts of being a way to help tell a story, give you context to your actions, and hopefully play into like this live narrative thing in a way. But really, every time I finished a contract, every time it was like, well, you really showed it to the bad guys. Good thing we got you on our team. Let's do that again. And it was basically that, just on repeat every single time you completed a mission. There was like no storytelling at all. And there was almost like 0 to none when it came to environmental storytelling. But there was this one clip that I found online of Active finding some actual story elements in the game that I was like, you need to do this more often.
This is Dr. Song. Dying far from home. I did it. I found it. Even if it's found me later. You hear me? You can colonize my blood and liquefy my bones, but I figured you out.
Maybe I shouldn't have gone down here.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're talking about when it comes to environmental storytelling. If something just creates interest within the world, makes you think about what's happening in the universe, because the way they were telling the story through the alpha, there wasn't one. There just wasn't a story. Not that like every PvP game needs some kind of story element, but this is like one aspect I think that Bungie could really excel and really set itself amongst the other extraction shooters out there to really capture people's attention. And it was just really non-existent the whole time. So I'm not quite sure exactly how deeper environmental storytelling can be improved within 6 months, but I mean, I hope it is. And the reason why we're getting this technical test now, this is basically a fresh restart of what was supposed to happen back in April, now again in October. But the reason why it's happening right now is because if you guys remember from the last time I talked about on the channel, that Marathon is still scheduled to release this fiscal year of FY25, which would put it right about towards the end of March. You can see this graphic right here from a Sony PlayStation investor call showcasing the schedule of what's going to be happening for live service games. And you can see a Marathon still scheduled for 25, and hilariously, Fair Games is still on there, but dude, I don't even think that game's releasing at all. I can't believe it hasn't been officially canceled yet. But it does seem like we'll get some other minor changes that kind of tally up to a better experience as well. It was highlighted here by Paul Tassi a few months ago back in June, talking about the NDA leaks that recently showed like better lighting when it comes to some of the environments, saying some of the outdoor scenery was improved because especially on some of those maps, man, it was pretty bland looking. Also saying that there was blue blood pooling in the water of where players died, similar to what we saw from the cinematics, rather than just turning into a duffel bag. So it seems like what's going to happen is that there's still going to be that duffel bag, but you have a corpse that's left on the ground until the player is fully out of the match. The black market has materials exchange where you can trade higher tier ones for lower tier items with new icons. The map legend now clearly says where things like anomalies and bosses are. There's a new sniper on there as well, which is great. Resurrection timers are a lot longer, which is great as well. The new medic runner has the ability to give a player heals drones that follows them and restores health over time. They can also drop med kits, say similar to like Apex Legends and stuff like that, Lifeline. But when I actually kind of broke down exactly what we were getting with this test, I'm like, well, you're not really giving us much new stuff. It's more kind of stuff you were just kind of holding back previously, because including the 3 maps, they already had these pretty much done by the time for the alpha test. The 5 shells, again, already completed. Prox chat, that's a flip of a switch really, or some fine tuning. I guess the combat tuning pacing has been certainly a actual rework. Solo queue, which is kind of like just giving people an option to search in. Deeper environmental storytelling, that's something that I really don't think it's gonna see that much expansion on. And so it's really gonna be more about like the fine-tuned experience of like the raw moment of moments is what we're gonna see a different with this playtest compared to what we saw back in April. But I've already signed up for my chance to get into this technical test. I was, like I said, part of the original playtest back in the alpha there as a content creator with Marathon. Hopefully I get involved with this one as well. If I do, you know, I'll definitely be talking about the best I can, even though it's going to be under NDA. Again, we'll have to see exactly what is able to be showcased when it comes to, or talked about when it comes to this playtest, because of course you're going to see leaks happen as well, and if we do, I'll definitely cover them here on the channel, because I'm very interested to see what players' reception is going to be with all these changes. It does seem like a lot of good changes, but I don't know if it's going to be enough changes to really make people want to jump in and go like, yes, I have to play Marathon. This game looks amazing. If you enjoyed the video, like, subscribe, always appreciate it. I'll catch you on the next one, guys. Make sure to check out some of my recent videos. I've been doing some more long form essay type videos, which I really enjoyed making. Take a lot more effort than videos like this, but it's something I really wanted to try out. So got some stuff here if you guys want to check it out. Anyways, thank you all for watching. Greatly appreciate it. Peace out.